Hey everyone, this is my spoiler review for Spider-Man Far From Home. It was a late Monday night, my alarm goes off, and I question whether or not I should roll out of bed at 11:30 p.m. so I can get in my car and drive 50 minutes to AMC, sit in a theater in the middle of the night to see a 2-hour film just to get back up for work in 3 hours. Was it worth it? It's safe to say I was not pleasantly surprised because it's Spider-Man, and expectations were already very high for this film. It did not disappoint. Spider-Man Far From Home is a well-crafted, well-told continuation of the Marvel Cinematic Universe's ongoing storyline and excels at being a fun and exciting film with our favorite red spandex-wearing superhero. This adventure was an enjoyable romp through Europe, as opposed to the usual skylines of New York City, and it expanded upon the aftermath of the snap from Thanos in Infinity War and Bruce Banner in Endgame. The world truly is a very different place for these characters, and some characters were snapped out of existence and the others survived for 5 years longer. The movie does well to bring in newcomers up to speed on the status of planet Earth after the wild, cosmic events of the Infinity Saga. And truth be told, if you didn't care to keep up with the stories in the other 20-plus movies in this universe, or even the most recent Avengers Endgame, you could still very much follow and have a good time watching this one. While the Avengers that survived are still around, this is a Spider-Man film, beginning to end. The one disappointing thing to me and many other fans of Homecoming was the amount of involvement of the other popular Marvel heroes in the film. But this time around, the writers focus more on furthering the story of Tom Holland's Peter Parker with the usual drama and humor as the more recent Marvel films. Think Thor Ragnarok or Guardians of the Galaxy. The acting from the leads takes the first MCU Spider-Man sequel to new heights, featuring talents like Jake Gyllenhaal as the Mystical Mysterio and Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, both with ample screen time as well as Spidey himself. The locations are plentiful, and the filmmakers knew how important it would be to keep the Wallcrawlers' future outings as fresh and lively as possible, seeing as how there are already 6 live-action appearances of Spider-Man on the silver screen since 2002. John Watts returns from Spider-Man Homecoming to direct Far From Home, and it certainly shows. His style of filmmaking and directing, along with a very tight plotline, keeps the film from dragging along its 2-hour runtime. The biggest issue with most movies these days isn't CGI or tone or even themes, it's pacing. Simply how engaging or boring a film is. A good mix of drama, small character moments, and exciting set pieces for action scenes makes a film not a total yawn fest. Far From Home keeps the pacing in focus and the superhero moments new and thrilling. The awkward teenage antics are shown off here in spades, and there are a lot of characters returning from Homecoming to make the most of it. This is the funniest a Spider-Man movie has ever been on screen, maybe barring Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The jokes landed for the most part, and the acting from the extras held together well. The first act could use a few less slapstick, awkward moments to keep the pace going, and again, not all of the jokes land, but for your superhero movie to stand out and reach new heights, one must create a well-incentivized and intimidating villain. After all, the saying goes that the hero is only as good as their villain. Jake Gyllenhaal brings it as Quentin Beck, or as the public deems him, Mysterio. He has a rooted past with Tony Stark, and Tony leaves a technological power void. Mysterio fakes his way to the top using drone projectors, lots of CGI, and holograms to create convincing renderings of monsters for him to quote-unquote fight. The world has found a new hero in Mysterio, and Nick Fury, along with Peter Parker, join the battle against the Elementals that Beck secretly created to make himself look like he's on the same side as our heroes. Peter finds out Mysterio is a true villain and has to use more than just his various suits and web shooters to overcome Mysterio's various illusions. This puts Peter in more be-more-than-your-suit moments that Tony kicked off in the last Spidey film. Much of why I love this film is the villain, and his various tricks and behind-the-scenes looks at his illusions and quote-unquote magic. He always seems to be 3 steps ahead of everyone working with him, and he steals every scene he's in. This plot is very focused on showing Peter off as more knowledgeable and familiar with his powers and how to use them, but still does not stray from its innocence and naivety, along with some hilarious mishaps and mistakes along the way. Peter being too trusting of Beck and giving him the AI glasses essentially sets up the third act of the film, allowing Beck to create one final illusion at the Tower Bridge in London that Peter must foil. In my humble opinion, the CG has definitely improved over the previous standalone Spidey outing in the MCU. The suits look fantastic, but one has to wonder why the CGI makeover on the suit. Maguire and Garfield had practical, true-to-life suits, and Holland does as well throughout the MCU, but that's not what's shown on film. On set, the suit Holland wears is real, convincing spider suit, but every time it's shown on screen, there's a thick layer of CGI over top of it, which I find to be entirely unnecessary. The homemade suit Peter has before Civil War is just a pair of sweats and goggles, no computer touching up needed. There's also one shot of CG Tom Holland flipping and webbing up a building in Venice early in the film, and it looks very rushed and was all too clearly not a practical shot. Conversely, Mysterio in his entirety looks fantastic and moves with style. This is a spectacular looking film, and despite my nitpicks with all the CG suits, the stealth and upgraded suits are well designed as well as welcome additions to the vast history of spider suits. The new, unique villain allows creative and frankly trippy scenes to take place, such as the end of the second act where Beck confuses and disorients Spider-Man in a weird Doctor Strange-esque illusory moment. We have never seen a Spider-Man in a situation such as this, like trying to save Mary Jane from falling, only for her to disappear and Peter slam her to the floor. Watching it on the big screen is quite an experience. Ask yourself this: what do you personally look for in a Spider-Man film? Or even really any superhero film? Some may say action, others story and grand set pieces, but for me, it's Peter's relationship with the supporting cast, such as best friend Ned, love interest Mary Jane, or of course, Mysterio. These relationships are a part of why we love this character, and the interactions are purely Peter Parker at his finest, awkwardness and all. Mysterio steps in as a new mentor and father figure to Peter, especially after Tony Stark left that hole to be filled, and Mary Jane is fleshed out much more in this film compared to Homecoming. Her moments with Peter feel genuine and realistic, like their conversations could be had by any pair of high schoolers, and more depth is given to their relationship when she finds out that Peter is behind the mask, truly a defining moment for any Spider-Man love interest. How unfortunate it was that this was unironically given away in all the trailers. What a moment to toss aside for a joke. Instead of diving into the drama and shock of a character realizing that Peter is truly Spider-Man, this is a scene that is played for satire, something too many Marvel films do these days. Despite all that, this relationship felt earned to me, and that's no product of the first movie, with Peter having set his eyes on a senior named Liz in Homecoming. MJ and Peter feel right together, and that is a result of a focused narrative with a drive to tell a pure, grounded Spider-Man story, a story of stepping up and choosing to do what's right over one's own desires. This is the 7th live-action Spider-Man film, and it chooses to stand out from the other 6 by keeping an eye on story pure and simple, with great directing, various new settings from New York City, and a very fun and intriguing villain. Some desire a more traditional take on the webhead, with thrilling shots of swinging through the city, or the slower moments with Peter trying to snap photos of Spider-Man for the Daily Bugle so he can pay his rent. But John Watts and the rest of the Far From Home writing team know the importance of mixing things up to keep this character from getting stale, and in my opinion, I think that change is necessary for the Marvel Cinematic Universe's take on Spidey. I would love to see the Raimi films in an updated light with Tom Holland doing the usual New York stuff, but branching out from the norm and exploring different settings and the effect it has on Peter and his abilities, relationships, and problems is a very important change to take, not to mention a risky one at that. Thank you for listening to me ramble on and on about why I love this movie. It's not perfect, and no movie is, and it has some flaws, but this movie really scratched that Spider-Man itch I had. This character is so innately a part of me, and I enjoy seeing the perspective new directors and viewers have for this hero and his world. Spider-Man is the everyman. He is relatable, and he is very, very flawed. The very groundwork for this character is that Spider-Man speaks to the over-the-top personification of the duality of superheroes. Peter Parker is one of us, and has normal person issues, which is and will always be the most standout example of the two sides of being a superhero. He messes up, he learns and grows, he makes time for both the people he cares for, as well as the thugs lurking around the dark alleys of Manhattan. This singular character means so much to me, and that's why I had a blast at Far From Home. My favorite Spider-Man story is still from Marvel's Spider-Man on PlayStation 4, which shows a hero at the age of 23 with college debt and 8 years of hero work in tow. It shows Peter at a time where his life is just about as dangerous and as complicated as it gets. But the fun is in seeing how he handles each problem, for better or for worse. There's a reason I've beaten that game 4 times. Regardless, Spider-Man Far From Home is a wonderful continuation of Peter Parker's journey as a growing hero, and hopes are high for a 3rd film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Thanks for watching.